So hi, I'm Edward Mundt from the lead Incubator and Startup Accelerator. I wanted to start by thanking this year's Me2We organizers, as well as the guest speakers, the workshop facilitators, faculty, and lead workplace groups for a memorable experience. Speaking of lead groups, way back in early 2020, there weren't quite as many as there are now. With all the brilliant minds within the lead community, there was nothing like the LISA that we have today. At that time, we got together with the founders of the Silicon Valley Design Thinking Club and the Capstone Group to try to create an ecosystem to inspire and support founders. This actually coincided with COVID and a program called Stanford Rebuild. Now, this was an 8-week sprint that Stanford opened to anyone in the world with an internet connection. Stanford leveraged its online startup curriculum, known as Embark, to help would-be founders develop ideas that could help the global community deal with the effects of the pandemic. Stanford's Rebuild initiative inspired us to create and launch LISA. And like most startups, we went live long before we had all the bugs worked out. We utilized the Embark curriculum as well, but offered additional support, like design thinking sessions, and we had guest speakers via our Podium X series. We had our first cohort comprised of lead participants at the same time. The cohort culminated in a pitch fest with guest VCs serving as judges. The winner of the initial cohort was Alvaro de Marga Pardo, who we'll meet a little later on today. So since that first cohort, LISA has only continued to grow and improve its offering to the lead participants. We are partnered with Stanford to use and help improve that Embark online curriculum. And we have since enhanced that with our own digital incubation platform. Now, as a reminder, LISA is open to all lead participants, past and present. Our deadline to apply to the upcoming cohort 4 is March 15th, which is next Tuesday. Links will be provided later in the chat, as well as on our workplace page. And you're strongly encouraged to be a part of it. We were created to help our fellow leaders go from idea to MVP. So don't delay just because your idea isn't prepared to launch. That's why we're here to help. If you're interested, your team members do not have to be affiliated with Lead either, as long as you are. So you could have friends from work or just people that you're partnered with and still be part of the LISA experience. As you can see here on slide 4, we've been able to add many enhancements to the program thanks to our outstanding team of volunteers. We have design thinking sessions that are catered to each founder's unique business case. We assist with financial models, conduct fundraising workshops, and help founders fine-tune their pitches. Now, the next few slides show some demographic information as well as some of the finer points of our prior cohorts. So far we've had 3 cohorts with more than 100 ideas. Just think about how incredible that is, from the lead community. And we've had 50 mentors, more than 50 mentors, again, from the lead community. It's really great to just be a part of something and to continue your engagement, whether you finish this term or you finished a couple of years ago, you can still be involved. We've had founders in over 15 countries, and our speaker series, we've had more than 75 guest speakers from VC, different tech communities, and other founders. And then, of course, one day we'll have a unicorn here, and as you'll see when Deepti talks to some people, we may already have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. We're very fortunate to have an incredible board of advisors, including Morena, who has joined us today, Davina Drabkin, as well as Singari Shashrati. They have really helped us on our journey, and they've helped to make LISA a valuable part of the lead community. So as we've grown, so has the network, or so has the work and the responsibility required to be fulfilled in order to make LISA a success. And none of that would be possible without the executive leadership team and other volunteers, including mentors and design thinking facilitators. And it's a shame that we only have 50 minutes because it'd be great to thank each one individually. because they've all been absolutely fantastic. And I know we've got a number of them on the call today. And, as always, thanks to all of you. So with that, oh, and again, the reminder, the deadline is next Tuesday, the 15th. You're strongly encouraged, links in the chat, links on Workplace. Feel free to reach out to Deepti, me, or anyone else who has anything to do with LISA, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. And with that, I'll turn it over to Deepti to introduce herself as well as today's guest panelists.
Thank you, Edward. Thanks for this wonderful overview. Next up, we have our roundtable discussion with 4 of our LISA alumni members. And it feels so great to even say alumni, as when we started LISA journey 2 years back, we couldn't even imagine that we would grow so much to have alumni members. So thanks to everyone's support here. But anyways, to continue, 4 of our alumni members whose business ideas continue to grow since they graduated from LISA, and they continue to show that adaptability and resilience are a necessary expertise as an entrepreneur. We will be kicking off this session with a few questions to the panel, but we also welcome questions in the chat that you may have for any of these panelists, and we will take them after a few introductory questions that we already have. Without further ado, let's welcome our amazing panelists. So we have here Deep Mukherjee from Ceres Foods, capturing the ready-to-eat food products market in India. Michael Presley from Tangent Health in US, with business in US and Singapore, a medtech company on a mission to create awareness for everyone of their heart health. We have Alvaro de Murga Pardo from MexiCrowd, one of the few crowd leasing fintech startups in Mexico. We have Faraz Sagar Alam from Amicus, a legal tech company with a few interesting pivots in India and soon in Canada. So at first, I would invite all of you panelists to introduce yourself and your startups and your wonderful achievements. Would you want to go first, Dave?
Hi, thanks, Deepti. Hi, everyone. My name is Dev Mukherjee. I'm based out of Mumbai, India. I was the part of LISA, the second cohort, right, Deepti? And I passed out of Stanford Lead last year. In October. So my startup, I run a business in consumer goods, which is primarily focused on ready to cook and ready to eat market in India, which is a very nascent market, but growing very rapidly, especially after COVID-19. We launched our business in August 2021. And since then till today, we have grown almost 30x in terms of volumes. We are present in 28 cities and 2 countries. At the moment, we are just starting our journey of raising capital from venture capitalists. And we started this journey in February. So it's pretty exciting and busy time for all of us.
Thank you. That's been...
I'll say the rest when you ask questions, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave. And we've been following you very, very closely everywhere. Okay, next up, Michael. Michael, we don't hear you. I think you're mute.
Thank you, Deepti. I'm Mike Presley. I'm the chairman of the board and CEO for Tangent Health. We were originally known when we were part of LISA and the LEAD program as EKG Insights. We are a team of people that work in the healthcare tech industry. We specialize in medical algorithms that raise both the specificity and sensitivity of existing legacy equipment to help disrupt the field by offering such technologies very inexpensively and but very effectively to the neglected and marginalized communities in the various countries that we now operate in. Specifically, our medical algorithm, PlainSight, captures and analyzes wavelets from any 6 or 12 lead EKG. Within 30 seconds, we can turn that into an actual picture of the heart of the patient, showing 180 points on the heart and any areas of damage, heart wall damage, which we know as ischemic changes. And what that does is that very rapidly identifies the patient to the appropriate care levels and to the care settings that they need to go. We're now, because of our regulatory stance, we're operating in Southeast Asian market, which came about because of our standing within LISA when I was in the winner's circle along with Deb back in cohort number 2. Within 30 days of that cohort, we had been funded and acquired by a public company in Hong Kong called EC Healthcare. That's a $16 billion market cap company. We were immediately given over $1 million to rev up our position on APIs and integration into the existing EMR platform networks. We were then able to fully incorporate our company in Singapore, which is Tangent Health. And recently, we just opened up our global unit in Dublin, Ireland, called Tangent Health Global. Our market size right now, we go by countries, really. We have several countries that are contracting with us at this moment. And our revenues look very good. Our projected revenue for the next quarter is 75 million. And we already have about 3 million patients lined up for our technique throughout that corridor, primarily due because of the COVID response and the impact of COVID and the vaccines on the heart muscle. So a lot of these governments want to have a full assessment to show what the risk analysis is, and that's what we do. Funding comes from our public entity, and so we have a fairly good funding stream, but organically, we're starting to do a lot of revenue, so the need for further funding might be minimal.
Thank you, Michael, for that introduction, and congratulations. You've been amazing ever since, since your first success story with acquisition that happened. So congratulations again. Would you like to go next for us?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Deepti. So yeah, nothing as awesome as Michael's. So I'm Faraz. I'm based out of Mumbai at the moment. We're a legal tech startup. We provide data analytics, which is just a fancy way of saying choose your right lawyer. We help you. We effectively give you data, which will help you decide how many times your lawyer has won a case, lost a case, before a judge, how many times a judge has heard a particular case similar to yours before. We just got first round of funding, and we got selected by the Manitoba Tech Incubator and the Government of Canada. So we're going to set up in Canada. Thank you.
Thanks for us, and we've always believed in your product, and we are pretty certain you'll be as awesome as Michael's as well. Alvaro, do you want to go next?
Sure, thank you. We were proud to be the first cohort in LISA, and we were the winners. We are a Mexican fintech company offering a product that is disrupting traditional markets, the public investors and the leasing market. We realized we could help solve real problems in both markets using the crowdfunding tool. So we create this idea of crowd leasing model. And the idea of the model is based on an easy to use platform in which investors are offered opportunities to invest in fixes, accept, lease to the creditors and receive an income every month. And at the end of the contract, they could receive a balloon payment. One of the greatest competitive advantage against other crowdfunding platforms is that we have that investment are backed by a real tangible asset. We started 2 years ago. Right now we have 253 investors, approximately, 2.6 million US in assets, with a portfolio over 4 million US. We are proud to have a profitable business from day one. And we are collaborating. The main idea of all this crowdfunding was to collaborate, and our partners, the most complete situation that we are trying to see is the reduce the inequality gap. We think that the inequality around the world today is alarming. So the main idea of this platform is to help reduce this gap.
Thank you, Alvaro. And indeed, he's one of the first cohorts and also one of the biggest supporters of LISA so far. So thank you, Alvaro. So wonderful to hear all of your stories and how you converted your ideas to MVP and now some real business opportunities. It's very rewarding for us at LISA to even hear about these success stories. Would you like to talk a little bit about your journey with LISA back then when it was just an idea stage? And if there were any things that formed the foundation of your road ahead? Maybe we can start with Faraz.
Yeah. So so my journey with LISA was, to be honest, I was just like, what did I get myself into? And that's the reality of it. It was so comprehensive, and it was, the coursework. I mean, if you take it seriously, LISA allowed, had this whole gambit of things that you wouldn't have thought of, or I wouldn't have thought of when I was even doing my startup. Whether it was marketing, it was design thinking, it was legal, it was corporate, it was structuring. I mean, they just absolutely. I mean, there's just one course. I don't think there's anything else out there in the world that can really prepare you for what LISA was able to help me with. But to balance that with lead was really challenging, and I didn't expect LISA to be that comprehensive. So I really was like, wow, what have I got myself into? But by the time I came out of it, trust me, it's the principal reason that I'm still at my startup. It's still it has succeeded to the extent that to a point that I didn't envision that it would, and it's principally due to the fact that LISA really helped me understand that this is not a sprint. It really is a marathon, and that you have to go through the hoops, and there are challenges, etc. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what I would say LISA for me was all about. It was a tremendous journey that gave me the endurance to understand that you're not going to get it right the first time, and there's a lot to having a startup. And so so that's my journey.
Thanks, Faraz. Would you have something similar to share from Michael about your journey and also about your idea to MVP, how exactly that was?
Sure. Thank you again. Well, my journey with Plainsight actually started when I was a graduate student in the MBA program at Johns Hopkins. And I developed it there with an old friend that was in business with me for 25 years. But we noted that there was a need to have a story accompanying. Yes, we were disruptive. Yes, we could change cardiology. Yes, we could do all those things. But we really needed to get exposure in a tech sort of way. And with that in mind, when I graduated from the program from Hopkins, I went over to LEAD with the idea to leverage the experience, to build my storytelling around it. But one thing I never expected was that when I was going through design thinking courses, I actually made a pivot. And that pivot was instrumental for us getting our funding and, of course, our success today. Initially, that story was we felt that our device could actually look at old files from insurance companies, because we don't have to take it from a live feed. We can use electronically stored EKG files to look at. And we could sort of build a profile or baseline studies and then look at how insured individuals have been impacted by COVID so as to better assess insurance risk. So our market was basically reinsurance, and that's what we were thinking about coming out of Hopkins when we did that. However, when I got here, when we went through the LEAD program and I met up with Niels from the design thinking group, we made a total pivot to clinical services. And it was through that we got picked up by EC Healthcare, because they saw a need to fill their more than 300 clinics, and they have 3,000 providers in their network already, but they had a great need to service more than 900,000 patients which they had at the time. And this was something that they could make a big pivot into their their care and risk assessment for all of their patient members so as to mitigate disease impact or disease burden. And so with that, we were contacted literally 30 days afterwards. And it was that gave us the money, the resources to make a quick move into the commercialization space. I also helped them with pipeline activities. So they've given me a funding budget also for other ideas that have come along in the healthcare to help bring to their market space as well. So I owe a lot of it to LISA and to the people like Deepti and Ed and all the groups there, because they exposed us to a great array of different tools to help us become a real story. And that story has reverberated throughout the healthcare market, and the amount of contacts that I generated from it, anywhere from OEM manufacturers like Philips, manufactures a 12-lead EKG machine, to basically NGOs that are centered in Africa to provide these services. This was quite amazing. And we're able to now rapidly stand up because of our progressions in engineering, where we now deliver our technology as a SaaS model using the Microsoft or Azure cloud as our local reference point. So thank you very much, LISA, and thank you very much, Lead, for making this all possible. As you can see, I'm now back at Hopkins getting my MPH at the Bloomberg School there. That will be a long process because my work in my company is very extensive at this point. And but again, thank you very much to the LEAD program and to LISA because of the ideas.
Thanks, Michael. And I know that your story has been of pivots and also resilience. So we can all learn a lot from you and whatever you've been able to do so far. I know, Dave, that you have a very similar pivot story as well. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, and it's superb to hear how well Michael is doing. Congrats. I came into LISA when I had a running business. And the business was okay. It was doing well. We were primarily B2B. And in fact, my final pitch at LISA was a B2B solution for food, across the world. Post LISA, actually, we made a pivot, and we realized the market was such that, COVID was still there, lockdowns were still happening, so we didn't know what's going to happen. And most of our B2B clients were still not in business, and we made a pivot and we went B2C. So we actually converted our entire model into a packaged goods format and started launching on Amazon and all such aggregators in India. And that pivot was made primarily because of what I learned through LISA, especially the design thinking. And I think Michael touched upon it. The design thinking course, although we had a whole session in the LEAD program, but to have a design thinking practitioner working on your exact problem and answering those questions and finding a solution, I think that's something that was really, really great for us. And thanks to LISA, thanks to Deepti and Ed. And both of you also were very active and guided us throughout the way. And where we are today, I do contribute a lot to this process that we've been through, where the whole ideas were being shaped up and where we are today. So great to have joined it. And honestly speaking, I probably will do it again because we will probably get 5 more ideas out of this.
Thank you, Dave. That's a real good recommendation, and I would say testimonial if you're saying you're going to join us again. But I think we would have you as a mentor. In fact, that'll be great. Alvaro, it's really long back. I think the LISA program was not even so well developed when you joined in. So do you have any stories?
Oh, well, but it was amazing what you did with us. I remember last year Me2We interview, and I mentioned that the order and the structure that gave us LISA was something very valuable. Go step by step. Sometimes in life, we would like to skip even the answer, any of the stages that we saw on the Embark platform. You have to do a pivot, and again pivot. It's like and I would like to give you, I don't know if it's a good example, but maybe you can get it. It's like when you are putting together a Lego, no? If you don't follow the instructions, you will make mistakes. It means that you will not make mistakes in life and also if you are making a product, but it means that you are aware where you were or where are you going to be standing. For example, that Michael's project and what he has done is just amazing, but that's life. It's something that maybe someone will go faster than you, and you have to be patient. So LISA did with all the job, all the help. It was just amazing. And the only thing I can tell you is you have to take your time, be patient, and it will come. Don't hesitate to ask people for help. So I was the first one, we were the first one, but it was amazing what you did with us. As Deb told us, I will do it again and again.
Thank you, Alvaro. To shift the gears a little bit, I mean, we all know that an entrepreneur's journey cannot be without some challenges, roadblocks, and pivots, right? And for us, I know you have an interesting story to share here that, in your own words, you said if we had called you to this session 2 weeks back, you wouldn't have anything to share. So would you like to talk a little bit about that and, what changed things overnight?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the critical aspects that I alluded to in my previous question also was just that endurance part and the fact that, sometimes a lot of it is luck, but a lot of it is just perseverance and understanding that it's a long journey, right? So as far as my story was concerned, when effectively I passed out of LISA, we were still at the programming stage, right? And we kept programming without really a plan as to what's going to happen next, right? And so, and all of a sudden, what happened is that just last month we got together with a bunch of people, and one of the guys there had a dad and a mom who had a resort, and they wanted to do data analytics in that resort. And one of the things they wanted to do was they wanted a software that could read the model numbers of the cars that come into park in that resort. And they said, hey, can you guys do that? And we said, let's try it out. And we tried it out. And yeah, software could, because it can read judgments, it could read that as well. And so that's how we, it was just programming. And that's how we, it was a breath of fresh air. And then one of the guys who was with that said, hey, I really like your stuff. And then he invested as well. So, I mean, that's why I told Deepti that I said, look, Deepti, if you called me about, 2 months back and said, what am I doing? I'd say, hey, you tell me, so, but, it's sometimes, you, like all the participants spoke about pivot, sometimes things just, take time to materialize. And so we got lucky in a sense, but I think one of the things was that what LISA also taught us is that opportunity doesn't come from where you're looking at it, right? And so the minute we saw that there was an opportunity to use something in a totally different field that we hadn't thought about, we saw opportunity there. And so we went for that, and things just, for a year and a half, it was slow, and then things just, for the last 1 month has been crazy, and that's just, because we saw opportunity, we persevered, and we came to where we were. So yeah, so it was, I attribute it to a mom and a dad who wanted to know car model numbers, and Deepti calling me at the right time, because I wouldn't be here if she'd called me a month back.
No, you would still be here. I'm pretty sure about that for us. But what's really interesting about your story is that, you were not somebody who was stuck with your idea and said, this is how I want to use it, and this is only the way I want to use it, right? And you saw the opportunity to kind of pivot and use whatever available resources you had to a better or a different segment. And I know that you're also thinking of different segments now that where this software can actually be used. I know of another challenge that you had of getting data and scientists to build the software in the beginning. Would you want to talk about that as well a bit?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the problems that we've always had is the fact that what we want to do requires a lot of data scientists, right? And the data scientists are expensive, And so, the challenge of, either, and this is where LISA helped us a lot as well, because there is a challenge between not being able to pay them top dollars versus, giving them equity and diluting yourself and all of that. I think the way we dealt with it is that one of the things we did was we tapped young students who were just coming out of college. This was an idea that actually I hadn't got. This was an idea that one of the, in the design thinking course, one of the aspects that they taught us or discussed with us was, where would you get to the resources, right? And we, and of course, what are the hindrances to get the resource? And so I remember spending a week on just trying to figure out, hey, what's going to happen when we can't afford these people, right? So that's, that process, and that was done. So that's Deepti, that's how we really. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, you can just maybe say, talk about the last sentence that you just said.
Yeah, I mean that's how we tapped into the data scientists, and today we have 8 data scientists in the team who are working with us, and also because we pivoted, right? We took this opportunity of reading car number plates, and they, that's a challenge as well for a lot of these guys, and they do it, and so yeah, things worked out for us.
Thank you for sharing this, and I mean, clearly says as well that how resourceful the entrepreneurs have to be right in the beginning, when they do not really have the enough finances to do whatever they want to do, and how else they can think about quick alternatives to that. Another interesting perspective is also from you, Alvaro, who's actually facing some regulatory roadblocks now after already scaling your business. I think it's been 3 years after LISA, and that you encounter some challenges now.
Yeah, you're right, Deepti. I think at the beginning we were clear about where we wanted to be and what we wanted to do. Our journey hasn't changed a lot, but like in life, you will find some stones, big ones, small ones. And the main reason we have only grown our portfolios in last year, when we were at the Me2We last year, we have 70%, and the investors around 10%, is that we need a specific regulatory permits for our government, because you are getting money from the investors. So we have uploading all the documentation to receive these permits and be able to operate as a fintech. We have in Mexico a fintech law. We have invested countless hours, represented in more than, I don't know, maybe 70,000 sheets of in-house development work, and we are really closed. Once we get this fintech law, we can open to the public to invest in our company and to invest in other ones' assets, as I was telling you. So maybe you can think I will have a problem about the market, or maybe as we are happy or living, it's something that is a regulatory thing. So you have to be open-minded that problems will come.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Alvaro. I know it's like, you scale the business to a certain level, and then you come across certain regulatory issues. And I'm sure Michael has some very similar areas of regulatory roadblocks as well. Would love to hear, Michael, how are you overcoming those challenges?
Well, as an attorney in my former life, I did have experience with the FDA process. CE mark was obtained before the modifications came in May of 2020. We're now completing the 510K process. We finalized our clinical trials that were necessary to focus on particular elements of our software. And what was helpful to me, however, was that when I got aligned with the company EC Healthcare, given access to their wide resources, and that was not just financial, but also SME experiences, I was able to augment that experience and accelerate that experience because of all the associations I developed with a diverse population of individuals. Things as obscure as quality management system assistance, creating trace matrices and all that. They were specified groups that were able to come to our support and rapidly advance us through that. So we have a pretty good pipeline right now to advance forward into the regulatory schemata of various regions. And that comes mostly in part because outside of the United States, most of the regulatory approvals start in the academic settings. So for example, in Singapore, we went through NUH, which is the National University Hospital System. And if they sponsor an institutional review board study, they will gear it toward gaining acceptance and approval. Just for those that don't know what the IRB process is, it's a mechanism of having an independent group of academicians and experienced engineers coming out and formulating a validation study for you that is then run through strict trial requirements. And there's a global board that certifies all these universities. So basically in any center, you can get that. So we were able to hook up pretty quickly into that network. And whenever we need something, we find an SME in that place that hooks us up, and then we gear our clinical trial studies toward that. So our problem definitions for each trial study, which is the cornerstone for each IRB, may differ slightly, but the consistencies throughout is sample sizes, double-blinded studies, et cetera, and from which we then submit the data and then get the regulatory approval. The difficult ones, of course, to get was the new modifications in CE mark because they required additional clinical trials, number one. Number two, when the UK broke away from the EU, they no longer accepted CE. They went to a group called FAIR, F-A-I-R, and they require that not only you show efficacy and safety, they also require that you do financial modeling that will show that they can save huge sums of money if they adopt whatever it is you're proposing, which is part of the reason I went back to Hopkins. I have access to a lot of primary source data on all countries that show me how my data would actually improve various systems. So it was an educational process, but being connected to the right strategic partner in the financial realm was able to greatly accelerate our passing various regulatory requirements, and there's really no substitute for that.
Absolutely, I agree, Michael. I mean, I've known you as one of the best networkers out there, so definitely, I think that's a skill of yours has also really helped you advance in in doing things that an entrepreneur is often gets stuck with. Dave, your business has been by far mostly bootstrapped, I know that, but as you're scaling, you are now looking for VC funding. Would you like to share your current experiences around that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we have been bootstrapped for a while, and now we are reaching a certain scale. We have realized that it needs a lot more capital than what we can afford, and if you don't have that optimum amount of capital in the business, it's not going to succeed. So we started the process of raising VC funding last month. Currently going through the process, I think few learnings that I've had in this last 1 month and the 10 meetings that I've done at the moment. I think it's very important before you start this process to do a lot of research on the funds that you want to approach. You need to go through their portfolio companies to see what sort of investments that they're doing, who are the people behind the fund, what's their experience, because ultimately you're going to get them into your home, right? And you have to live with them for a while. We faced like a lot of issues. Like initially when we approached a few people, we didn't realize that some of them have investment in maybe some of our competitors, and that becomes automatic conflict. And sometimes it's also very tricky because you're going to discuss with the fund. they don't sign an NDA, and you're going to talk a lot about your business. And at the end of the day, they may not just invest in the business, but get a lot of information out of you. So, so it's very important, and we learned it the hard way. The second advice, and it's advice I'm giving myself also every day, that be very, very prepared for rejections, and people can be very harsh and brutal. I mean, I'll tell you the first meeting that we had with a large consumer fund with a lot of hope that we're going to get funded. The guy basically said that your business is crap, and in the meeting. So it takes a lot to hear that, but then we went through the second meeting, third meeting with other funds, and there's a lot of positive response. In fact, with a few people we have down, we have gone to round 2 and round 3 of discussing numbers. So be prepared for disappointments. Every VC has a view, and not necessarily that view is correct. You have to understand that every VC fund is going through probably hundreds of opportunities or emails throughout the day and throughout the year, and they end up investing only into a few. So they are basically jack of all trades. And if you are a very passionate entrepreneur, you know a lot about your business, sometimes you may feel that, okay, this guy sitting in front of me really doesn't know what I'm talking about. And a bit of ego comes into play. So you need to sort of balance all that out. Ultimately, they're bringing the money in, and choose wisely. I think that's what my advice is. There's a lot of money available in the market. There are lots of funds in India. I was just telling Deepti the other day, we have 500 and above VC funds of various sizes. And I think in the US, I think you will have probably 10 times that amount. And not everybody is a great partner. So do your research before you start the work.
Thanks, Dave. I have a question here from Rohit in the chat. He's saying, how do you decide on the valuation of your company? Michael, would you like to take that?
Yeah, sure. I just want to bring up one part about Dev, because our experience started out first with VC groups, private equity groups, and quite frankly, I'd rather have a root canal than endure those pitch decks. What I suggest, and that really worked well for me, is that if you can get an industry partner that sees the value, number one, they can see the value in your product a lot quicker. And when they can see a fit in their business, they're willing to, put money into it as, creating new pipeline models for yourself. So I think if you really want to get the most out of it, try to look for people that are industry leaders in your field that can, where the uptake is going to be a lot simpler and the process is a lot better. And then once you get there, all of their VC private equity groups, and they want to throw money at it because they now say, oh, look, our guy did it, and look at the results. So kind of see if you can partner with somebody in industry who may not necessarily be a VC or private equity group. That's what I wanted to say on that. Your question was, I'm sorry, on that, Deepti?
How do you decide on the valuation of your company?
Well, what we looked at, we use the Peter DiMarzo operating cap tables to create an NPV, or a net present value, for the company. And that really takes looking at your business over either a 5 or 10-year horizon and plotting out where you believe that you're going to be. Look at the private equity groups, that if you're looking at that, and see what their return on capital is. And that will govern your weighted average cost of capital. Then look at what your discount rate would be, put that all together, and then you'll come up with a net present value for your company. Like when we were doing our investment, which was very critical, because for the investment, we only had to give away a very small percentage of the company. And that's because we had a net present value at the time of funding of 50 million. So that is how we came to that. We used the capital operating budget table that you have in the finance course at LISA to help generate that net present value, which is the key to how they assess the breakdown of the investment in terms of shares and in terms of equity. So I would say that is the biggest key: determine what your net present value is. And so you have to size your market, figure out how that market will grow exponentially over the years, apply an appropriate discount rate, taking into consideration what the majority of private equity groups look as their weighted average cost of capital. And then from there, you can come up with a pretty good assessment of evaluation upon which they'll, argue with you about it. But if you can support it with good data, like we did, we had a very good response. And the one difference here, and this is important that I found out afterwards, my net present value was 50 million, but the project that was worth to them was actually 150 million at the time. Why is that? Because I would sell it to the group at $25 a test. They're turning around and selling it to the patients at $80 a test. So their net present value is what they're looking at when they're looking at it. So they're going to say, okay, fine, your net present value is 50 million, but the project to us, if we incorporate it within our network, it's worth 3 times that amount. So therefore, it was not surprising for them to acquiesce quickly to our assessment and say, okay, fine, here's the money, let's do the deal and let's get going on the project. So bear in mind, when you're doing net present value, and if you're doing it with a strategic partner that's in your field, you should do the net present value of your company, but then do the net present value of the project and how it would enhance the company's bottom line, who's having an interest in acquiring you.
If I can add a couple of things here, Deepti. So no, that's great, Michael. I think one of the things that I faced, and maybe some of the other participants here might face, especially as a startup, if you are approaching a VC and not a strategic. In your case, you have a strategic investor, right? But if you're approaching a VC, especially if you're pre-revenue or very low revenue or no profitability or losses, I think the valuation there becomes a bit tricky because it's very difficult to figure out the net present value. So what we sort of saw how people are working on it and our conversations with various other people in the industry is, first of all, whatever we do, and there's a big difference between a tech valuation. So if you're a fintech, then you can go through the roof. It can be anything, right? And but if you are doing, say, a consumer sort of business, which has a lot of benchmarks, first of all, we have to convince the people on the size of the market. So if I'm sitting in India and I say that, I'm doing I'm doing something for the Indian market, if I go and pitch to a VC anything less than a 5 to 10 billion end market potential, people don't show interest. Now the question is that how do you value? What we have seen is that people look at a revenue run rate. So suppose you are selling, say, $10,000 a month today, and you feel that in 12 months after you get the money, you will be able to scale up to say $100,000 a month. So the VC will look at that $100,000 a month, or say 12 months from now, as a $1.2 million a year revenue run rate, and they will put a multiple on top of that depending on which industry you are in. So that multiple of revenue is what we have seen is between 4 and 6. So if you have a 1.2 million revenue run rate at the end of 12 months, 4 times that, so 4.8 million would be your entry value. And if they invest $1 million into it, effectively they will take 20% of your company. So that's in a nutshell how people are valuing it. This will change drastically because this is like a, it's like a piece of art when you go to auction house. So there are crazy people who will bid on it. If somebody really, really likes you, then that 5 can become 50. We have seen that happening, very recently in India also. So if you are just lucky, then great. One advice that I have, and I think Michael also did this, don't raise more money than you need to, because the first dilution is gonna haunt you for the rest of your life. And it is always, you are always gonna feel that, oh shit, I raised too much, I didn't need so much. Don't rush to become a unicorn. I think it's better to make money and profits in a business than have a valuation. So raise less money and dilute less as much as possible, and pay off people as much as possible. Don't give out equity as much as unless you are a co-founder. That's my advice.
Those were some great nuggets, guys. I mean, in spirit of time, we have, session only till 50. But it is really great, and I think I can go on and on with this conversation with you guys, and hopefully call you guys again as well. Maybe we'll just finish with one sentence advice to all the budding entrepreneurs that you would want to maybe share. For us, do you want to start with that?
My one my one advice would be to be a continual learner. Listen very carefully to the advice you're being given so that you can make the necessary pivots and don't be hung up on one idea. Be flexible. You have to be flexible and patient.
Thank you, Michael. Faraz?
Yeah, I mean, try and get through LISA and learn as much as you can. I think that's the best advice I can give.
Thanks, Faraz. Alvaro?
I can stress enough the importance of knowing your customers or your clients' needs. Using the tool, we're able to keep an open mind and not get stubborn with your own ideas and the way you thought our customers experience our product. Instead, listen and understand their needs and make appropriate changes to offer a better alternative. In short, never stop getting to know your customer.
That's a great advice, Alvaro, absolutely. Dave?
And my advice is don't think that you are the cleverest person in the room. There's always 5 other people doing the same thing. And keep a watch out for competition. Talk to people as much as you can. And definitely join LISA before Edward and Deepti starts charging for it.
Absolutely. We hope that someday that would happen, but I think it's a lead community and we really don't want to do that.
But then we get equity into LISA.
Thank you so much, guys. I mean, it was a great session. Thank you so much for your time. And like I said, we could just go on with this conversation, but we have our rest of the sessions as well coming up. Clearly, we see the discussions here. The greatest takeaway is that as an entrepreneur, you're going to face countless challenges, both internally, externally. But what is most important is just to keep going on and persevere. Thank you so much for joining this today, to all the panelists and also lovely audience here. And I mean, really wonderful support from even Me2We in the committee that he's been, really helping us come forward with these sessions. So thank you so much again. Ellen, to you.
Thanks, Deepti. Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's great to see a lot of familiar faces and also a lot of people that are new. So hopefully we can all work together here over the next cohort or so. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Edward. Elan, over to you.